No more reforging? Thanks, Obama. Hey everybody, this is Michael Sparks. Welcome back to the Sparklepony Roundup. I know I had like a 2.5 week hiatus there. It was not intentional. Things have just been really crazy with IRL stuff. But bear with me. I'm going to take some measures to make sure that doesn't happen again. Anyway, as you may have read on Twitter, I decided to scrap the episode of Garrisons, which is part of why I didn't get anything out last week. If you really want to listen listen about Garrisons, I suggest you go over to the Zam channel, and Olivia Grace posted a amazing video that goes so in depth that I really felt that anything I could add to it would just be superfluous. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about one of the other major news pieces of Mists of Pandaria. A lot of people are talking about it since BlizzCon. I'm going to be talking about the gear changes that are going to be happening in Mists of Pandaria. And a lot of this is tentative speculation because we can't really say what's going to happen until we've seen the stat squish in action. Once we've seen the stat squish in action, we're going to know how much haste is really helpful per se, or how much spirit the healers are going to need. But in the meantime, it's all tentative speculation, and that's kind of what makes it an interesting subject to talk about, because we don't know exactly how this is going to go right now, and we're going to kind of take a look at that and see ways that it might. Okay, so first things first. Hit and expertise are gone. No more hit, no more expertise. We won't have to cap these stats anymore. Blizzard said that they really don't feel that this was compelling gameplay. It's just math that was unnecessary. And I can't agree more. I mean, think about it strictly from like a in-universe perspective. If you can't hit something that's the size of a barn, how are you a veteran level 90, level 100 warrior? Seems more like a level 2. So, I'm all for the removal. Hit and expertise drive me insane, especially in a post-Throne of Thunder world where everything is just absolutely crawling with hit, where I could be having other stats. Granted, I've phased out most of my TOT gear, but I think I'm still sitting at like 9 or 10% hit, and that's after reforging as much of it possible into other things that are more useful to me. So I'm all for that. While we're on that subject, reforging is going to be gone. Most people already knew about that. A lot of people are kind of panicking about that. A lot of people aren't really happy about that. But with the stats being squished the way they are, I honestly don't see the need for the program. I mean, or for the feature rather. The main thing with reforging was it was making stats that weren't so useful to you more useful. And with the stat squish incoming, I have a feeling that every stat is going to be more useful to you, at least in some manner. I mean, obviously there's going to be a best statistic, but with the scaling and, say, 50 mastery being like the equivalent to like maybe 5,000 mastery, I don't know the actual numbers. I'm bad at math, so even if I did know the numbers, I wouldn't count on me if it'd be an accurate mirror of what's going on there mathematically. If you want to find out about that, feel free to tweet Celestalon. He's the guy that is doing all of the numbers online. He actually works for Blizzard, so you're getting it straight from the horse's mouth. But as I was saying, I mean, everything's going to be scaled down, but it's also being scaled up in a way because each point of that stat is more to you. So don't count on really missing reforging a whole lot. I think that we're going to be just fine without it. And I mean, once again, Blizzard raised an excellent point when they were talking about getting rid of it, because I mean, who honestly sits there and calculates all of their reforging? I can think of maybe one guy in my guild that does that, and that's just because he's too prideful to turn to Mr. Robot or to an add-on. And I often question his reforges. He's probably going to take offense to that, but the last two times he tried to help me with a character, he broke them both. So, I mean, just use Reforge Light. Just use Mr. Robot. I mean, that's what everybody does, and I mean, I'm gonna be curious to see how it impacts Mr. Robot after the expansion. I know they're working on a lot of other tools to get out of the "you should reforge and gem this way" stuff. But since that is the epicenter of their business model, I'm gonna be really curious to see how that site adapts and survives in Warlords. On an actual gameplay side of things, this is going to be great. I mean, you're not going to have to sit there and go like, oh, but I need this piece because if I get this piece, it's gonna give me more haste and it's gonna not knock me off of my expertise cap. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I'm gearing, that's totally a thing. I'm constantly While I'm constantly shaving hit off, I'm constantly finding places to put expertise on, because it just doesn't seem like rogues have a whole lot of pieces that have them. And the pieces that they do have just have giant tertiary amounts. And that's not compelling gameplay, it's just frustrating. So, all for the removal of hidden expertise, all for the removal of reforging. Uh, as far as I know, Valor Point upgrades are also going away. I don't remember, but I think I remember them saying something about them completely overhauling the Justice and Valor Point system. I don't know if we've got any news on that as of yet. That'll probably be something we see more once the beta comes out, which we still have no idea when all that's going to take place. So it's a really fun guessing game right now. Now, of course, with the removal of any stats, there's usually always a implementation of new stats, and there will be some new tertiary stats coming in Warlords of Draenor. Now, these stats are going to be secondary to your secondary stats. They're going to be things that are few and far between, kind of like gem slots were in Burning Crusade, where only a select few pieces actually had them. And actually, gem slots are going to be one of those tertiary bonuses, and they haven't really decided what they're doing with them. They've said that there's not going to be any socket bonuses this time around, but they're still going to be keeping the colors, so they're trying to kind of figure out what they're going to do there. Because, I mean, they can't just completely redo jewel crafting after 3 expansions worth of red gems, blue gems, green gems, etc. Sorry, that would get a little rambly. So, gem slots, I talk good. Gem sockets are going to be one of those tertiary bonuses that we're going to see kind of few and far between. The other ones are going to be Cleave, Multi-Strike, Lifesteal, Amplify, Movement Speed, Avoidance, which is going to be a reduction to AoE attacks, and Sturdiness. So, with the exception of Sturdiness, these are basically all of your trinket bonuses from Siege of Orgrimmar put into a numerical statistic. Cleave is going to hit everything in an area. It's going to be awesome for trash. It's going to suck for boss fights, unless you're doing something kind of like the Twin Consorts. Multi-Strike is pretty straightforward. It's that extra strike. I'm going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up working with a lot of classes that already sort of have a multi-strike as their mastery. Because I don't know how that's how that's stacking up right now with trinkets. I honestly haven't been paying attention to a lot of the math side of things. Like I said, I just tend to set it and forget it with an add-on. But I have a feeling we may end up seeing some masteries reworked in Warlords along with some of those racials that they're redoing. Don't quote me on it, but I mean, Wild Quiver and Main Gouch, they're really not interesting bonuses. They're really not interesting gameplay. I think one of the warrior classes also has the additional strike in there, and doesn't element or not elemental doesn't enhanced shaman also have that? I haven't played enhanced, but I know a lot of classes have that really boring bonus, and if Blizzard doesn't rework it, they really should, especially with multi-strike being implemented as a tertiary bonus. Um, Lifesteal is pretty straightforward. You hit the guy, it heals you for a percentage of the hit, if not all of it. We're going to have to see how that one works when it hits the PTR. I have a feeling it's going to be pretty awesome for tanks. Obviously fairly useful for DPS as well. Readiness reduces your cooldown, so it's the statistical form of the say the agility trinket off of Shaw of Pride, or the strength trinket off of, I think it's, isn't it Galacrus? It shaves a little bit off of your cooldown. Unfortunately, a lot of those abilities that it reduces the cooldown on are not super useful, so that one's definitely going to need a little bit of work, in my opinion, as well. Um, Amplify is just pretty much straightforward. More attack, more spell power. Um, I don't know if it's a crit modifier or if it's just straight up amplification, but either way, it's obviously going to be good for DPS and healing classes. I don't think tanks are going to have a whole lot of use for it other than maybe Death Knights, since the attack affects the shield. Movement speed, once again, really straightforward. You move faster based on how much movement speed you have. And sturdiness is going to be reduced damage to the item itself, so it's going to lower your repair costs a little bit, which I am all for because I'm cheap. Now, as I said previously, these stats are going to be spread out a little more. You're not going to be seeing them on every piece of gear that you get the way that you kind of do with crit, mastery, haste, spirit for healers. They're going to be kind of here and there, but not everywhere. They're going to be bonuses that you can hope to get, but they're not going to be anything that you're really going to be able to aim to get and try and build a set with, because, I mean, every time they've tried to do a statistic like that in the past, it's just been absolutely game-breaking. I mean, go back to Wrath of the Lich King. Remember armor penetration? Remember how awesome that was? Remember how terrible that was? You know, we don't want any more armor pen situations. Or rather, they don't want any more armor pen situations. So, don't count on seeing a whole ton of multi-strike gear or a whole ton of amplify gear especially. These are going to be nice little bonuses to pick up on the way. They're not going to be best in slot checklist items, because there's not really going to be a whole lot of guarantee to get those. Now, they have said that there are going to be a lot of set items. They've also said that there's going to be several items that are kind of Timeless Isle style, where you get the token and it generates your stats for you. I'm not a big fan of that gear. I'm hoping that that is mostly related to questing and things like scenarios rather than raids and 5-mans, because, man, I went through so many tokens on the Timeless Isle just trying to get some shoulders for my hunter. hunter had really bad luck in Throne, and every time that I threw on a piece, it was just like pure expertise, and I'm like, I can't use this. I'm already expertise capped. So I am not a fan of that system. A couple weeks ago, you may have seen that I was actually talking about that system with one of my guildies and the Vulgin RP Twitter. We were talking about the Timeless Isle versus the Darkspear Rebellion and how I felt that that gear worked a lot better because the stats seemed a lot less arbitrary and the gear was more spread out, so it didn't seem as pointless. Because, I mean, at this point, why do you even do anything other than the Timeless Isle before you go into Throne LFR? It's invalidated a large portion of the game, and I just don't feel like that was a good approach, even though I do like the convenient catch-up mechanism. I think it could have used to be a little less convenient. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, so I'm going to try and get back to the topics at hand here. One of the interesting things that's going to be going on with these pieces, because, as I'm sure all of you have read by now, there's not going to be any more strength plate and intellect plate, agility mail and intellect mail. It's just all going to be mail, plate, or cloth, and or leather, and based on your class and spec, it will mold the primary stats to you. So if you're a Resto Druid in full intellect leather and then you swap over to Feral for a fight because maybe you got one too many healers, boom, you're instantly in a full set of agility gear without having to change anything. There's no more 2, 3, 4, up to 5 sets if you're PvPing. It's just going to be one set of gear. Maybe 2 sets of gear for the second one for PvP, because I think PvP stats are still kind of going to be their own thing. Now, the off pieces, the cloaks, the rings, the trinkets, the neck pieces, the jewelry and the cloaks, those are going to stay basically the way they are now. They have a chance to have any stat that's useful on them. They have a chance to be at agility, intellect, or strength. I'm not saying chance to be as in they're all going to be random. I'm just saying that they can make them whatever they want to make them, and they're still going to drop the same way that they always have. Bonus armor and spirit are also going to be on those. Bonus armor is going to be the new primary damage reduction stat for tanks. Spirit is obviously still going to be the primary healer stat. A lot of people were kind of hoping that they were going to do something with that and make it so that maybe Spirit would intertwine with Intellect, maybe. But no such luck. It's going to remain its own secondary stat that you're going to, well, not reforge into and out of, but, you know, gear for, enchant, gem when you have the chance to gem. A lot of the considerations to gear are going to really change in from Mists to Warlords, and it's weird to even talk about it, because I mean I can sit here and talk about it, oh yeah, and you'll enchant for this, and then come Warlords you get that piece of gear. It might not even be able to be enchanted. So this is a really interesting subject to keep on. I know I've said that a couple times now, but it's just we have both a clear and an unclear picture of what they're doing, and that just makes it fascinating to me, because there's going to be so many changes, and I think it really is going to all be for the better. I mean, anything that reduces the math and just gets back to, oh, awesome, I got a new piece and it's better for me, is good in my book. And I know a lot of people are worried about the issue of side grades. I think a lot of those side grades are going to end up being tertiary stats, though, so I wouldn't really put a huge amount of stock into worrying about exactly what's going to be the best piece, because once again, those tertiary stats are going to be few and far between, and they're going to be like this awesome unexpected bonus thing that you get, and not a best in slot checklist, because they have repeatedly said that that is not interesting gearing to them, to just have you go, oh, got my best helmet, got my best legs, and so forth. I mean, they want you to just enjoy getting a new piece, you know? So, you know, without getting into the heavy math, because, once again, I hate math. I really feel like this is going to be a huge quality of life improvement, because that seems to be the theme of Warlords. I mean, you look at things like the toy box. To my understanding, they're modifying bag space. They're implementing an in-game version of OQ, which I'll be talking a little about on the website over at raidanthem.net. They're doing all sorts of things to make life easier for us, and the gear is a large part of it, because every time you get a piece of gear right now, you have to gem it, you have to enchant it, you have to reforge it, you have to upgrade it. There's so much upkeep that this is just going to be a lot of simplification. And yeah, sure, I mean, you may feel like the gear is never ending because you've always got to be going to that next tertiary stat, but when you really think about it, isn't that an improvement over dropping like 1,000 gold every time you get a piece, because you got to go entirely regem and entirely re-enchant and entirely reforge? And I know that's dramatic, you don't always have to do that, but with a lot of characters, it just ends up seeming to be that way. So, you see where I'm coming from? Yeah. So, I think I kind of rambled a lot in this episode, just because, I mean, there's so many thoughts going around with all of this and the way that it's going to play out, because until we actually see the stat squish in action, we can't even really say how it's all going to play out. And I know some people have kind of played around with it a little bit at BlizzCon, and has DreamHack happened yet? At the conventions where they've had the playable demo of Warlords, but still, I mean, it's not the same as actually seeing it live, or even in beta. So, because once you've got it in beta, you can actually start to sit down and see what the actual directions of things is going, rather than just the sheer ability to determine, yes, this functions. We're going to be able to see how well it functions. We're going to be able to see the ways that it functions. We're going to be able to see so much more detail once we actually have the beta out. And until then, I mean, it's all just a guessing game. And it's a fun guessing game. I mean, that's the heart of theory crafting. But we don't have any definites. We don't have any reason to panic. We don't have any reason to get super... Well, actually, yeah, we do have a reason to get super excited yet. I mean, I'm not even really big on this expansion's concept, but I'm super, super excited for all of the quality of life changes and the gear changes. I mean, I would actually use the word stoked. I never use that word. I am stoked for all of the changes coming our way. Now, if you have an opinion on the changes coming our way, or if you have a question, or just something you'd like to see me talk about, you can reach me either via the Twitter. I am at Ponyzord. It's ponyzord. I just completely tried to rearrange that URL. It's at Ponyzord, or twitter.com/Ponyzord. Or you can leave a comment below on YouTube with their new horrendous Google Plus comment system that everybody hates. It's here, we gotta deal with it. Use it. Or you can go over to raidanthem.net, which is my guild's new website, and you can leave a comment either below the video on the main page, or you can go to the forums and send a private message to the user Barranca. That's B-R-R-A-N-C-A, and there will be a caption below with that spelling. Lots of ways to get a hold of me. Or, if you don't want to sign up for anything at all, you can even throw me something over at my Tumblr. It's ponyzord.tumblr.com. So I think this was a little bit of a long one, and I'm going to wrap it up now. Bye-bye.